Welcome back to my channel. Today I will be doing a slightly belated mid-year freakout tag wherein I answer 13 questions about the books thus far I have read this year. So without further ado, let's get into the video. The first question is, best book you've read so far this year? So I am going to have to divide this up into fiction and nonfiction. So the best fiction I believe I have read is, I haven't even talked about this book yet. Bad Nature by Ariel. This is about a woman that turns 40 and is diagnosed with terminal cancer. I hope you can't hear the sawing from my neighbors above. But anyway, this is about a woman that turns 40. She's diagnosed with terminal cancer and she decides, fuck it, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to sell everything and I'm going to go across country and kill my father. Harley, yeah. She's after a freaking bug on the floor. So Hester, the main character, decides she is going to go across country because she's going to die anyway and kill her father and then afterwards kill herself. And it is a kind of a road trip novel, which I'm not normally a big fan of. She meets a young man along the way who likes to photograph Superfund sites. So there's a lot of there is some climate change anxiety as well as anxiety of mortality, which are two things I don't want to read about, but yet somehow it was really well done. It was really hard hitting. I was on the edge of my seat, and she is not a likable character, and yet you are kind of rooting for her at the same time. So I really enjoyed this. And then the next book I'm going to have to say in terms of nonfiction, best nonfiction, has a similar cover, was The Jakarta Method by Vincent Bevins, Washington's Anticommunist Crusade and the Mass Murder Program That Shaped Our World. More relevant than ever if you've paid attention to what's going on in the U.S. So I've talked about this, I think, on my February wrap-up. You can go and read my more in-depth review there. But yes, these two books, which I happen to own, were the best I've read thus far this year. Best sequel, question number 2, you've read this far this year. Unfortunately, I cannot answer because I don't read series, and I very rarely read anything that has a sequel. I think in general sequels are not very common in literary fiction, which is interesting now that I think about it, which is primarily what I read. Question number 3, new release you haven't read yet but want to. I have a couple. I have one right here actually, but I'm gonna say still my number 1 is American Spirits by Anna Dorn. The sort of Lana Del Rey-esque mashup with Taylor Swift. I'm almost at the top of the queue at my library, but this is my most anticipated new release read. Question number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Now this one just came out, I think, on June 30th, so I'll include it as second half, but it's called Death Do Us by Ruthy Mason. I love the cover, first of all, but I find it so appropriate. This is the year of weddings. I've been going to a decent amount. Well, I've gone to 2 weddings by the end of this year. And as someone who wants to read a criticism of the wedding industry from a horror perspective, I think this will be really good. Because just as a side note, when I was away from booktube for 2 months, I went down a rabbit hole of all the things that go into wedding planning, and I'm just I don't think we're gonna be doing that. We're not, no. Too much. Question number 5, biggest disappointment. I've had a few, but I think the biggest disappointment was something that was on my TBR and was on hold for 6 months from the library, was Sea Poison by Caren Beilin. I haven't talked about this book either yet, and I will. I was excited for this book because it takes place in my city, Philadelphia, which not many books take place in Philadelphia. And it's about a woman that's also a little older. She's middle-aged, and she has an eye operation. and things go wrong. So there's a lot of medical malpractice in this novel, and it's kind of like lampoons the sort of artsy hipster scene here in Philly. And I'm like, oh, this should be right up my alley, right? And it just was like so over the top, almost avant-garde. There's like POV switching. I was just like, I got lost. And it took me so long to read it, and it was like 170 pages. It was almost a novella, so this just sucked. I rated this 2 stars. My friend ended up getting it for me at her library because it took so long. Like, I'd never been able to get it at my library because there was 4 copies and they were all checked out and never returned. Was it worth the wait? No. Question number 6, biggest surprise, Even the Good Girls Will Cry, a 90s rock memoir by Melissa Maur. That was my biggest surprise. I know I just read that off of my computer, but that memoir by Melissa Maur, who was the basis for Hole and Smashing Pumpkins, that was the first read of July, and it got me out of a reading slump, and I think she did a really good job. I don't know if she had a ghostwriter, but if she did, she's a very creative person, so she may not have. I thought the way she told her life story was so compelling, and I have a soft spot for, I love Hole. I love like Gen X music, even though I'm millennial. And I think that she really was able to like recapture that time period of the 90s and the sort of ethos that was around that is no longer, right, even by the turn of the millennium, how much the music industry had already changed and how certain subgenres, they boom in popularity and then, capitalism ruins everything, right? And I mean, she's a little bit, there were times when, I don't know. Anyway, I'll go more into detail in my July wrap up, but I really enjoyed this, and I think she did a pretty good job as well as talking about the dynamics in the band, particularly Hole, which is difficult when, you're under Courtney Love's shadow. So, highly recommended. I'm normally not a memoir person anymore. Favorite new author, debut or new to you? So, the 2 5-star books I read that were fiction, I would say Ariel Courage. I think Bad Nature was her debut. And also Alice Evelyn Yang. She wrote A Beast Slinks Towards Beijing, which was another 5-star read for me at the end of May. And I thought it was great. It was a really good, well done, multi-generational family saga with some magical realism elements. I will definitely read anything else, sophomore novels that these 2 authors put out. Question number 8. Newest fictional crush. I was thinking about this, and I can't answer, unfortunately, because I think that I read a lot of female authors, and a lot of female authors write about women and women characters, and men are generally not like the central part of a lot of stories I read, and so I unfortunately cannot answer this. Question number 9, newest favorite character. This was also hard for me to answer because I feel like I read so many characters that are they're like shades of gray, right? I will say a book I just finished recently was called The Strange Girls, and the one character, Aaliyah, I could relate to aspects of her. So, I kind of felt like her friendship with the other character, Ava, I couldn't stand Ava by the end. So I'm going to say Aaliyah. That's my favorite fictional character. Question number 10. Book that made you cry. Alice Evelyn Yang. Again, I'm going to have to say A Beast Slinks Towards Beijing. Probably because it touches on generational gaps between children and parents, and generational trauma, and also just seeing your parents age and even lose not just their physical abilities but cognitive abilities. I did get kind of choked up in part when I was reading that book. Question number 11. Book that made you happy. So I don't read a lot of happy books, but I did have to say a book I proofread was The Museum of Modern Love by Mariko Turk. I think this is out in October. And it's like a YA rom-com kind of thing. And normally I would not like that. But I actually thought it was well written. It kind of surprised me. So I would say that book made me happy. Question number 12. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received? Well, that is very easy. It's going to be Cooling the Tropics, Ice, Indigeity, and Hawaiian Refreshments by Helena Julia, can't say her Hawaiian surname, Hobart. This is a really pretty cover. I love the rainbow, and this was like an ad from the 1920s for ice cream of a Hawaiian girl. Academic press title, I think was by Duke University Press. Prettiest cover probably, at least that I own. But runner-up, I will say, is a book I'm reading now, and that is called Ex-Wife by Ursula Parrott. I don't know who the cover artist is. Let me see, actually. Cover design, Gabrielle Wilson. Oh. Cover image, Art Deco, Modern Dancing Girl, Kobayakawa Kiyoshi, a Japanese artist. I had a calendar years ago that looks like this style of sort of like Flappers Girls. So this is also a beautiful cover. Also one of my favorites. And then question number 13. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Now, I did a library haul, so I will just go through these because I will obviously read them probably within the next month. Indelicacy by Amina Kane. I think this is about a woman that wants to be a writer, and she's like a cleaning maid. And instead it was like David Lynch. So I am planning a video about Lynchian books, so that's why I wanted to read this. I want to read them all before I talk about it. This Memoir, which is a new release, Strangers, a Memoir of Marriage by Belle Burton. This is about a very rich woman who is like, comes from old New York money, and she and her husband get a divorce after like 20 years, and he basically like takes her through the ringer. She wasn't very financially smart. So I think, yeah, I'm always interested in reading about, you know, women and financial independence, right? Because women, contrary to what people think, get screwed in divorce more so. This book I got from the library. I just heard about this literally yesterday watching someone's TBR video. She Would Be King by Wayetu Maur. I don't know if this author is... maybe not, but this is about Liberia, the founding of Liberia, and it has like 3 people from 3 different backgrounds. One, I think, is an African-American settler, one is a biracial person, and then one is, no, there's no one from like the indigenous tribe. But anyway, I think the founding of the country of Liberia is really interesting. It's a lot of people don't know about it, including our president. So I wanted to read something about Liberia. It is kind of like a magical realism, historical fiction. And then this book is called The Silent Period by Francesca Manfredi. It is an Italian translation. And I saw this in a bookstore. I didn't get it when I initially saw it, and then I saw it in another bookstore, and I'm like, I'm going to read it. It has to do with social media. And basically the main character does like a digital detox. I guess it gets kind of trippy, but... yeah, I look forward to reading that. And then I have other books I do want to read that I have not mentioned. Perfect Victims and the Politics of Appeal by Mohammed El Kurd. I've wanted to read this since I heard about it last year. I think I'm probably going to go out and buy it, though. The Dry Heart by Natalia Ginsburg, another Italian author. This is about a woman that I think kills her husband. I'm reading a lot about marital stuff, I've realized. On hold from my library. She Who Remains by Pehe Kapako. Oh, I don't know how to say her name. It's Albanian. I have had this on hold as a request, I think, since March, when it was longlisted or shortlisted for the Women's Prize. I think I'm number 5 in the queue. Yesteryear by Caro Claire Burke. The waitlist on this in my library is 635, but you can just drive to a local branch and pick it up. My library will not send new releases out to other branch locations. I mean, it's crazy, but I do want to read it. I know it's got a lot of hype, very polarizing. And I also want to read Immediacy, or The Style of Too Late Capitalism by Anna Kornblue. Sunny Book Nook did an interview with Anna Kornblue, and this is a criticism of art within the past 10 years and how much social media and apps and instant gratification has changed the way, not just the way we consume art, but how artists create art, books and TV shows and movies, and how a lot of times exposition or how things are now being sort of spoon-fed to you and simplified, everything is immediate. And I was like, yes, this is true. This is a lot of like contemporary fiction I am reading that has aspects of things like metafiction, autofiction, laying stuff out, beating you over the head with it. And I'm like, what is this? I have noticed a change. And so I think this is going to be kind of a dense read, but I do want to check it out. And yes, that is it. Those are my plans for the rest of the year. As of the day of this filming, I have read a total of 59 books, which is, pretty good. Yeah. And let me know if you have read any of these books, or if you want to, and if you did read them, what you thought of them. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.